Hello everyone and welcome to our final Pitch Perfect of 2025 and our final event of the EY Entrepreneur of the Year calendar year. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're live from our broadcast studio here on Harcourt Street and we have two fantastic pitches here this morning. First of all, I'd like to welcome and thank Pat Rigney, our new chair of the Alumni Board, who will be taking us through the two pitches this morning. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank John Purdy for his time as Alumni Board Chair for the last couple of years. We've thanked John kind of officially at our Leinster lunch earlier this week, but we will we'll make sure to mark the occasion when we get together again in the new year. We have two fantastic pitches, as I said. We have Paddy Finn, who's going to tell us all about his work with charity of Vision Ireland and World Vision, sorry. And also Paddy is an alumni from 2018. And then we have Brian O'Connor, who is from ISIF, supporting scaling large businesses long term and state investment there. So Brian will talk us through his pitch as well. But first of all, I'd like to introduce Pat Rigney, our brand new Alumni Board Chair.
Thank you very much, Emer, and delighted to be with you this morning. I just want to start by making an introduction to Paddy Finn. In June of this year, a group of EOY alumni members travelled to Tanzania, and I believe Denise, Chris, Ronan, Sean and John and others joined Paddy down in Tanzania, and they went there to see World Vision Ireland's work on the ground at first hand. Now, to tell us about that experience, an opportunity for you, your teams and your families to get involved in this project that will transform lives, we have Paddy here this morning from Viotas. Paddy landed this morning from Australia, so it shows great commitment, and he'll take us through a presentation on how we can support this incredible charity. Thank you. Over to you, Paddy.
Thank you very much. And Pat, first of all, thank you and congratulations on the new role as chair of the Alumni Board. Very much looking forward to seeing what the board is going to achieve, and thank you for everything that you and all the team are going to do for us all, and looking forward to the year ahead. But to everybody here tuning in, hello, it's great to see you all. On the other side, I know that I got in touch with a lot of you and that there's some friendly faces on the other side of the camera, so hopefully that'll put me at ease after arriving in from Oz at 7 o'clock this morning. But what I'm here to tell you about today is about a project that I've worked on with a number of the alumni and also with World Vision Ireland. And this is off the back of a trip that a number of us took, a number of the alumni took to Tanzania in June just gone. And we went out actually with the intention of trying to inspire entrepreneurship in some of the poorest communities in Tanzania, so that we could try to find the entrepreneurs in the community and back them to build opportunities, to build livelihoods in those communities. But what we actually found were communities that without access to water, they couldn't possibly think about making a step in that direction, where all their time is actually focused on bringing water back to their families and back to their communities. And we saw the stark difference between the communities that have water and those that do not. So really what we did is we decided to try to focus on how can we as a community help them to get up just to ground level, so that then we can move forward and try to help them to build out their livelihoods. So coming off the back of that, we have a plan that we worked on as a group and with World Vision Ireland that will enable us to bring water to 15,000 people in the community of Oljoro. And this will allow that community to move on from their entire focus being on daily survival to actually being on livelihood development. And we can only achieve this if you join us. But the Entrepreneur of the Year community have a tremendous track record of not only giving very generously, but also participating in and getting deeply involved in projects like this with tremendous success. And generations of EOY alumni in the past have done this, and we feel that this is a very strong project for the current generation of EOY alumni. But to start, I'd like to show you a video that will take you through our experience of what we saw in the community as we visited Tanzania.
I sponsor a child called Junior who's in Uganda, and off the back of our trip to Uganda, my wife started sponsoring Neema, and she's a little girl in Tanzania, and she's the same age as my daughter. I'm lucky enough to be involved with the EOY Entrepreneur of the Year community. A lot of my friends in EOY, they felt the bug, and we worked in with World Vision to organise a trip to Tanzania.
I'm good friends with Paddy, who introduced us to the whole idea of Tanzania.
And he said, look, the best thing you can do is get out there and fully understand what it is that they're doing and what the needs are there.
When we went on the trip, we didn't really know what to expect.
I was introduced to this project by Paddy Finn, a fellow member of the EOY alumni. I have to say I went out possibly with some doubts about a big organisation like World Vision. When we went through the few days out there, it completely negated all my concerns in that regard.
I was so impressed with them. They were open to all our questions and anything we were concerned about and anything we didn't understand.
With our child sponsorship programming, between 10 to 15 years, we make a commitment to community, and that's made possible by the individuals who sponsor children in those communities.
Through World Vision Child Sponsorship, you're paying €25 a month, and you're creating this unique relationship with an individual child. What that essentially does is allows us to build up a community. So it's building schools, it's training teachers, it's having safe access to water.
The primary reason that I went on the trip was to meet Grace, who was our sponsor child. She was part of the Aljoro community.
So we're heading out to see Yahoma, our sponsored child.
We're going off to see Happy. She's 8 years old. We've been looking forward to this whole trip. Really excited.
I'm heading to see Faraja, my sponsored child.
My little one's called Zoida and she's almost 2. Chris's is Olivia and she's 3.
When donating to charities, one parts with their money and that's it. You just wonder what happens. But with the sponsoring a child, there's a connection there.
We would donate to a few different causes, but I think this is the one where you'd have the most personal connection.
It was a really nice experience, and you really could feel the stability and the hope that you're bringing them.
The first day took us to an established project in Endabash that had been established for about 10 years, and we visited a school there and we were able to see the sanitation and the wash stations, and the children were very happy, very clean.
I recall and was kind of, I suppose, shocked at seeing how proud the kids were of their 10-step hand washing procedure.
I expected to be emotional, when I saw the clean water pump in action. That's changed the community.
And then the next day when we went to Aljoro, the school had 1,000 children, 6 toilets, no sanitation and no running water, and the difference in the children was very stark.
It was just a different situation altogether, where those kids in the school just looked hopeless. This was a school of 1,200 people without a water source.
It was very painfully clear why the kids in the first school were so proud of their washing facility.
Going to see one of the dispensaries with the doctor that was working there, he was telling us the majority of the issues that he sees is due to waterborne diseases.
It's just kind of mind-blowing, the things that we take for granted when you see what these people have to do to survive.
When I came back, I've really felt like, even though what we had seen was such levels of poverty, I actually felt that there was such hope as well for what could be achieved. The one word that was on all of our minds was water, clean water. This is what we have to do. It's not about taking a community and bringing it up to here. It's about just getting this community up to ground level.
It's been really great to get the support on this journey with the community of Aljoro, for them to develop good nutrition, for them to have health, livelihoods, for all those other things that we want to develop with the community. They need access to water. Having worked together to identify this water project where we can bring access to 15,000 households, which is an enormous number, for €250,000. Over the next 10 to 12 years, We will implement projects with the community.
That comes in at about 16 euros per person affected. The value of this is absolutely remarkable.
They had solar panels, so basically a borehole goes down about 100 metres.
With this, there's a source that they can actually get access to, so it's about bringing that water 25 kilometres with a water stop at each point.
For something like that to be able to be delivered and validated by people who've been there and people I trust and people who are actually building this platform and project, I think really resonates with me.
I think with World Vision, the statistic is that 89% of the money that they receive lands on the ground directly. So World Vision go and they actually train leaders within the communities, and those leaders within the communities, they assemble teams themselves around education, finance, sanitation, various disciplines like that. And now if you add in all of that voluntary effort, I think you're over, instead of being 0.89, I think you're exceeding 1 in terms of the value that's actually delivered on the ground.
The entrepreneurial skills in many of these countries is extraordinary. They're some of the most entrepreneurial people in the world, from street traders and small businesses and manufacturers and hotel chains. And a group of Irish entrepreneurs arriving can make a real impact, can make a really positive impact.
You know, this for me will be the first, hopefully, of many projects when somebody's standing up and reading about your life in a church somewhere. You want to have done something to make the world a better place.
Access to water is absolutely critical for everything we need to do in Al Jura.
This is a very real and tangible way in which, as a group, we can dramatically change the lives of these people and more. We'll have freed up all of this time of those women with the yellow cans that are down at that water source, those thousands of hours every day.
And I think sometimes it's important to stand up and say, do you know what? I can make a difference. And I think if people knew how impactful small gestures can be, it would be a no-brainer.
So I'd like to introduce you to Project Rainmakers. So this project gives us the opportunity to transform the lives of people in the community of Ulduro, not just for this generation, but for generations to come. So off the back of our experience on the ground there, as a group, we worked together with World Vision Ireland to prepare a project plan as to what can actually be achieved there. World Vision Ireland worked at finding a water source that would be possible to tap into and put a plan together as to how we could bring that water into the community so that we can help to avoid all of that time that these people focus on just trying to bring water to their families for basic survival so they can actually then move on to livelihood development. And with that project plan, we are going to deliver first of all, a concrete storage tank that's going to bring the water into the community, 75,000 litres. We're going to pipe out for 25 kilometres. So this is going to mean that we're going to bring water to multiple villages along the way with 25 water stops at key points which are in the schools and are in the villages. And we can achieve this for 250,000 euros. And that comes in at about 16 euros per person affected on the ground. And relative to other similar projects, which would often be generally about 4 times that cost on average, about 60 euros per person, this is incredible value because we actually have already identified the water source. And this is the element of the project which is to bring the rain. And in 1 year, this project can be delivered. And that will just change the lives of these 15,000 people and certainly change the lives of those involved in the project also. And this will allow us then to move on to the second phase later, which is to find the makers in the community that now we have freed tens of thousands of woman hours in that community. And they are the real powerhouses behind change. And we want to try to find those that are going to be the makers that can become the rainmakers. So how can we back the winners in those communities to establish small businesses that we can help and support so that they actually create opportunity for everybody involved in the community of Ulduro. So as part of this plan, what we are going to be doing is helping the EOY community to work with us to actually get onto the ground to see and experience what it is that they've helped to achieve. And certainly from my experience and the experience of those that have been involved, it truly is life-changing to not only give to a cause like this, but to actually meet the people involved and to see their lives on the ground and to see the difference that it is that you've made. Now, we'd love to be able to bring everybody involved on this trip, on 2 trips that we're actually planning. One at the midpoint of the delivery of the project, and another at the end when the project is completed. But what we have to do is we have to keep it to a certain numbers, and we've tried to divide that back down into the contributions that we're trying to raise in order to fund the project. So we're going to work as well as part of this with Will and Video as a Service, VAS, to document people's participation in these projects. So first of all, you know, we welcome all contributions, absolutely all contributions. And for those that can contribute €1,000, we'd like your name and a message from you to feature on the water storage tank on our founder's wall. For those that can contribute €5,000 or more, we'd like to bring you or one of your family members or one of your team, if you're involved in fundraising at work, to the community in Aljuro to get to see the project on the ground. And for €10,000, you will have your name on a water stop that will be to you, your business, your family, and a message for the community. And we'd like you to be able to bring 2 people, as I said, you, perhaps a family member, perhaps somebody from your business along to get to see the impact that you've made. And this area is actually quite near Kilimanjaro. So some people might wonder and may kind of question the idea of having their name on the project there. But for you, for your kids, for your grandkids in time to be able to actually travel to the area and to see the community that you've actually, to be able to find the community that you've helped to support and really transform the lives of, I think is going to be very important. And as well, of course, those of us who travel will be covering our own cost of our flights and a contribution then towards our accommodation, etc. that's there as well. But from my own experience, really, actually, it was, this started with a trip that myself and my wife Deborah took to Uganda. And of course, you know, a lot of us take a lot of work trips. We travel with the EOY community. We travel a lot for business. But for me, actually, it was huge to actually get to do this with Deborah and to get to do it with my family. And I think that that's something that really changed our lives for the better. And I think it's one of the kindest gifts that you can give yourself is to take part in something like this. So if we look at our expectations out of this, it really is a huge transformation that it's going to deliver for the community. It's hard to actually state the extent of how it's going to transform their lives. So we're going to start by bringing water, which is going to allow them to focus on livelihood development, but then we can move on and actually help to support them with our experience as entrepreneurs and help them to build small businesses that can create opportunities in the community there. And we know from other alumni that this has been done incredibly successfully by alumni in the past, and we're going to work with World Vision, who were able to link us into the community values so that we can make this an absolute success. So I'd like you to please scan this QR code to find out more. So if you scan the QR code, it'll bring you into a page where you can enter your details, and we will also then send you a much more detailed project plan, so you can see the cost breakdown, you can see the delivery plan of this project that you're going to be getting involved in. And you can also then give us details in terms of when might be suitable to make a contribution, what level of contribution it is that you'd like to make, and also who you'd like to share this experience with. So I'd like you to please consider this, and even in the run-up to Christmas, I'd like you to consider this perhaps even as a gift within your family also. And I'd like to just say a very special thanks to EY for the tremendous support of this throughout, and to the EOY alumni. You've been incredibly encouraging, supportive, and thanks especially to those who've already travelled with us to Tanzania. And I'd also then like to extend a very big thank you to Larry Bass and Carla Bass, and also to Colin Colton. So off the back of a chat with Larry on the bus to Osaka, Larry and the team helped to put the video that you just saw together, and also have said that they will be very keen to get involved with us on the ground on the next trips as well. So thank you very much, Larry, Carla and Colin. Thank you.
Paddy, what a great story, and you've really just demonstrated the best, I think, of EOY alumni. And the video, I think, for everybody who's seen the video, it's incredibly powerful, and the fact that everybody went out there with your colleagues and you've put your hand into the wound, as it were, and you went and saw and you felt what was going on. A question for you: why World Vision? Why did you choose World Vision as opposed to some other charity or some other way of helping people?
Well, you can imagine that with the alumni that were on the trip, World Vision certainly didn't have an easy life in terms of the level of questioning in this regard around governance, etc. In World Vision, and they gave us a huge degree of confidence in terms of how it is that they deploy projects on the ground, how it is also that they achieve a fundamental understanding of the value system in the community, so that they can tap into that value system in order to deliver the project with maximum success. And having spoken to a number of alumni members that have been involved in similar projects, they said, look, that is the winning combination now, because they would have wished that with some of their projects that they would have had that kind of on the ground involvement much earlier, because it's very challenging, of course, from here to try to administer that, and we're going to just tap into the network that's already there.
And certainly from looking at the video, it seemed to exceed expectations when you got there in terms of the execution on the ground. Was that your experience?
Absolutely, and their ambition and the whole ethos of how they work is to provide support to allow these communities to then stand on their own 2 feet and move forward. So World Vision will generally get involved in the community for about 10 years, and there's a plan there in terms of how they develop talent within the community. In terms of even financial skills, education, sanitation, etc., and how to train the leaders within the community who then form project groups, who then become a self-sustaining entity. And we've seen that not just at the beginning of a project, the middle of a project, or the end, but also communities that this is a number of years afterwards, and those communities still are continuing to thrive and build on the initiatives the World Vision would have started and supported.
Great, that's super. Just on the practical side then, for those who want to help today, or those who will watch the video later, what's on the other side of the QR code, and what should they expect, and how can people support you from a practical point of view?
Yeah, so as I said, this is not just about having people contribute financially. We would like people to get involved, and it's as much not just for the project but for themselves as well. This was a tremendous experience for me, for those involved, and I wish everybody could have that experience. So by scanning the QR code, we want to gather some details. So first of all, we can send you out the full project plan, because everyone's going to want to do their own diligence on a project of this type of value, and which we've already done ourselves, and also to give us an estimation of their level of contribution and participation in this.
And can they contact you directly if they have some questions?
Absolutely, please contact me directly. If anybody has any questions, please contact me directly, of course. And then, of course, we'd like to even understand when is a good time for people to contribute as well.
And one final question then, how much are you hoping to raise overall on this phase, just to remind us all?
So, on this phase is €250,000. From, I think, with the group that have been out there, we haven't been able to stop ourselves from talking about it at various EOY events, and I think we've already about €50,000 to €60,000 already contributed already.
Well, Paddy, you're a credit to your family and to the EOY community bringing that to us today, so we wish you the best of luck, and thank you for getting off the flight from Australia and coming straight to the studio this morning in EY. Thank you so much, Paddy.
Thank you, Pat, and thanks to all the alumni.
So now it's on to our next contributor, and this is slightly different because instead of asking for money, we're actually offering to give money. Not me personally, but Brian O'Connor of the NTMA is with us. We're very delighted to have Brian with us this morning. And Brian is involved in that area in terms of supporting businesses which are scaling. Also businesses where maybe some equity or money is to be taken off the table, or for many of us that is something that would be of interest. It's also long-term money, and it's money that's in supporting the national interest. So Brian is a Senior Investment Director at the Ireland Strategic Investment Fund. It covers a wide range of investments, from private equity to private credit funds, but today it's very much about funds to support the entrepreneurs that are within the EOY community. So I'm just going to hand over to Brian to take us through his presentation. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks very much, Pat. So good morning, everybody. I'm Brian O'Connor and I work at the Ireland Strategic Investment Fund. So first of all, maybe to give you a little introduction or overview to ISIF. We are Ireland's sovereign development fund. We are a relatively large fund of about 9 billion euros of assets and a team of about 80 individuals. Our mandate is to invest on a commercial basis, and so that means that we will seek to make the same risk-adjusted commercial return as any other third-party investor might, but investing in things that support economic activity and employment in Ireland. We do this by investing in and behind 4 key themes that are aligned to what we see as strategic challenges and priorities for the Irish state. All 4 of those are listed in the bottom right of the slide, but the one that is most important to the conversation today and the theme and strategy that I lead is what we call scaling businesses. The theory behind our focus on scaling businesses is essentially this. Ireland's economic policy and success over the last 50-odd years has been largely powered by a focus on foreign direct investment. It has been phenomenally successful, and of course we would like more of it. However, we would also like to stimulate, support and develop our indigenous ecosystem to make it more robust, more established and better positioned to compete globally. That is essentially the mandate that we try to invest in with that scaling businesses focus. And to give you a sense as to how we do that, on the left-hand side of this slide is perhaps the area that ISIF is most known for. For many years, we have been active investors in fund platforms, in venture capital, in private equity, and in private credit. We've invested in a mix of Irish and international funds and across specialist and generalist managers. All of those are mandated to invest in as many Irish businesses as possible to align with their various sectors, strategies, and respective strengths. That means that over the last 10-odd years, we have invested close to about 4 billion in that strategy, and our capital currently is in the hands of about 400 Irish businesses. However, it's the focus on the right that is much more of interest to us right now and directly relevant to this audience. And that is essentially using ISIF's capital more directly to support Irish businesses to help them scale. I've listed a couple of logos there of direct investments we have already from within the EOY network, but we are currently engaged on a number of other direct investments that we hope to make over the coming months and hopefully beyond that as well. So maybe to give a little flavour of what we look for, but before I do that, maybe again to be a little bit more explicit on what we're trying to support. Ireland for a long time has produced fantastic entrepreneurs. The Irish state and the Irish ecosystem invests a lot in things like basic fundamental research, in supports for early stage businesses via EI, Science Foundation and others, and we have a dynamic ecosystem that produces some fantastic companies. But sometimes a stage arises where a business exits or sells for lots of good reasons, but where all involved might still believe that there was a lot more runway to go if only they had had the support, the capital, or the systems to allow them to capture that themselves. And that is essentially what we are really trying to appeal for. So ISIF invests typically minimum of 10 million euros directly. We never want to be a controlling shareholder, and we prefer to co-invest with others. But it is the use of proceeds of what we're trying to back that is most interesting. We like, naturally, primary capital that supports growth and expansion. But when we talk to entrepreneurs and some of the challenges that they've had or some exited businesses, they often point to that stage that comes where you've been working really hard for perhaps decades, may have a successful business, but find that trade-off between backing yourself and actually being able to take some money off the table in a way that unleashes ambition. And so that ability to focus on growth-focused buyouts or some element of secondary that enables a business to position it best to push on is what we're really trying to bring to bear. We also look for all of the usual things that any investor will look like, ambition and capacity, strong management teams, and a drive to push on into the future. So if I talk about a couple of things that are different about ISIF and what we can bring to a business we invest in. The first and the clearest is the presence of a sovereign partner. So what that means essentially is that you get a green harp. You get a green harp that can bring viability, that can bring validation, and that can appeal to, I think, three separate sets of stakeholders. The first is investors, both existing or potential new investors. The second is customers, where it can be incredibly valuable in certain markets or sectors to be able to point to the presence of a state investor in your business. And the third is employees, both existing employees and potentially new employees you may be seeking to recruit. As well as that, our status as a sovereign investor means that we can help make introductions to a wide range of different networks, whether it's investors, stakeholders, or some policymakers, all due to the fact that ISIF sits at that intersection between commercial capital and the government ecosystem. The second major differentiator of ISIF as an investor is our ability to provide long-term capital. This is all born from the fact that ISIF is an evergreen fund. That means that we do not need to exit a business on a 3, 5 or 7 year time frame. We can and occasionally do, but the underlying thesis of ISIF's investment is that we are a long-term supportive shareholder biased to try to back businesses for 5, 10, 15 and theoretically 20 years. That means that we can bring stability throughout a business cycle. It means when a company hits the inevitable wobble, we don't necessarily get nervous because we're overly focused on the exit door. And it also means that many years into a holding period, so if we have been invested for 3 or 5 or 7 years, and an attractive opportunity, an investment proposition, or perhaps an acquisition target arises, we can follow on our investment with further capital even deep into a holding period. So the unlock and the potentials that are provided by virtue of not being focused on a set exit timeframe can be truly differentiated. And the final point is all derived from ISIF's mandate. We are biased and focused on enabling management teams to execute growth plans over the long term. What we want to facilitate is more, bigger and more dynamic Irish companies. We can bring balance to a cap table, playing a role where we are aligned with both management and entrepreneurs and potentially other shareholders, but crucially beholden to neither. That means that ISIF can play an interesting role to allow, in many cases, a business and entrepreneurs have more control over their destiny and their long-term future than might be the case if you have purely other third-party commercial investors. And finally, because of the flexibility that we have within our mandate, we can be incredibly flexible and creative when it comes to funding structures. Whether that's ordinary, preferred equity, various other types and structures that allow you to access the capital you need and the flexibility to achieve the goals of the business. I've listed here a number of logos of businesses within the EOY network that ISIF is currently invested in. Those on the right are ones that we are indirect shareholders via our fund network, and those on the left are ones where we already have a direct investment already. And finally, to bring all of that to a head, I thought it might be interesting to talk to you about an exact case study. This brings to light some of the features that I have spoken to, and it relates to a company in Limerick called AMCS, which I'm sure many of you will be familiar with. AMCS develops and sells software for environmental management companies in the resource, waste, recycling and environmental sectors. By now, it has close to 5,000 customers with 10 offices around the world. but it wasn't always that big. ISIF first invested in AMCS about 10 years ago with a relatively modest €6 million investment. That and the investment of our co-investors allowed AMCS to pursue an M&A strategy. They executed a number of relatively modest acquisitions in the early years, growing in size, scope and reach since then. And ISIF, true to all of the flexibility within our mandate, scaled up and invested incremental capital on 5 separate occasions to grow with AMCS. From that modest €6 million initial investment, we invested over $100 million in total, in the most acute case, allowing the business to execute a major acquisition on relatively short notice with a €50 million incremental investment from ISIF. We balanced the cap table between a management team and ESOP and a number of other longer-term commercial investors, allowing the business to retain its ownership and its focus in Ireland. And to date, thankfully, it has grown very significantly to over 200 million of ARR and about 300 Irish employees. That is essentially the model and mandate that we seek to replicate, and are very interested to talk to any businesses out there, perhaps even if it is only at an early stage or an exploratory discussion, to see whether there are further ways that ISIF can support your business. So on that note, perhaps we can take a few follow-up questions and maybe get some of Pat's perspective. So thank you.
Brian, thank you very much indeed. And I think for many of us, it's the first time we've heard your story, and I think it's very timely. Just on the ambitious scaling that you talked about, you do mention mergers and acquisitions and so on. Could you talk a little bit more about that? So it's not just necessarily organic scaling; it's much more than that potentially.
Yeah, so it's all of the situations that arise where there is a need for capital. And I think, Pat, one of the more interesting situations is, look, businesses that have been around, have been doing well, they may have organic investment opportunities, they may be planning a strategic M&A role, or something may arise at short notice. Or there also can that be that scenario where all of those things are on the table, but a management team has also been executing really well for a number of years and actually may want to take some cash off the table themselves. That isn't something that investors normally like, but when we look at those opportunities with that long-term philosophy, what we've seen in many situations is that ability to de-risk and take capital off the table personally allows a management team to actually really unleash their ambition and go for it, knowing that they are personally a little bit more secure and comfortable, and then bring in other investors, other expertise, and to go on some of those more ambitious growth journeys. That, I think, is probably the biggest unlock that we can bring to bear on so many businesses that are really have built phenomenal success, and often find that the more successful they are, the more attractive the incremental opportunities are, while also trying to manage some of the challenges through that.
Yeah, no, it's refreshing to hear taking money off the table is seen as something positive to unleash more ambition and more risk, rather than the other way around. In terms of bringing credibility and being a sovereign partner, that, I know, in certain parts of the world has great resonance. Are there areas that you would see that having particular resonance?
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on the company and the sector where they're operating. We've had a couple of specific examples, and I tried to call them out there. One is when it comes to recruiting and retention. So it's a really competitive market out there. Depending on the stage and the maturity of a business, you're likely competing against many other employers, potentially even some of the FDI companies. To be able to say to an existing or a prospective employee that you are established, the state has invested in you, there will be a big capital raise, that can provide a lot of security that appeals very much approach in the recruitment market. When it comes to appealing to customers, we've also had a number of really interesting feedback where a business in the cybersecurity space, which has obviously a lot of particular esoteric concerns, really found that their ability to access customers in the Middle East and Asia really increased when they were able to point to having a sovereign on the cap table. That will appeal more to some than others, but it certainly gives a lot of validation and is a statement of intent from the Irish state when it is able to back its most promising businesses in such a clear and overt way.
Thank you very much, Brian. Finally, so you're saying get in contact early, and I know you invested in an industry that I'm involved with in West Cork, and you were in there at a relatively early stage, and I think it's been a great success. So who do people get in contact with? How do people get in contact after today?
Yeah, there's no sophisticated process or anything. It's literally get in touch with me or one of the teams. What we would also say is there's no sophisticated process or approach. Okay. We like to talk to folks early, and really happy to have an early exploratory stage if somebody wants to float some ideas, see if something would work, take some feedback, and really happy to have many of those conversations. And like all of these things, engaging early allows everybody to build a little bit of familiarity and experience of credibility, which often can be incredibly useful down the road.
Great. So if anybody's got any queries, you can channel them through the EOY team, and they will get to Brian and make the contact, which would be tremendous. And given all the uncertainty in the world today, it's great to have you here talking about the opportunities to invest. So thank you so much. And I'm going to hand over now to Emer to wrap up.
Actually, that's okay. Thanks. Very good. So thank you so much, Pat. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Paddy. I think Pat put it well earlier when he said that Brian is here to give you lots of money, and Paddy is here to take some money, but for a really good cause. And what a person to do that and to lead that. Our Entrepreneur of the Year community have a good track record of charity and raising money. Shane Leahy from One from Humanity is still doing a really good job. So, this group of people are the right people to get on the ground, to raise the money, to donate where they can, or to get involved where they can. So thank you, Paddy. Thank you, Brian. Fantastic pitches. Great to have so many of you on. I think Katie has told us that there's, upwards of 60 on the line this morning, so thanks for taking. I know it's close to Christmas. Thank you, Pat, for the Q&A following the two pitches as well. We've had a fantastic year in 2025. It's hard to believe that it's come to a close. Somewhat relieved, but also really looking forward to 2026. We've had our biggest ever retreat in 2025 to Japan. Thank you to the kind of upwards of 140 of you who joined us over in Japan earlier this year. We are now in the TV business on our TV series. So for those of you who didn't get to see it in November, we're delighted to get the figures in the last couple of weeks of over 1 million people tuning into that TV series, and we hope that RT will sign right up to it again, which leads us to our class of 2026, which is still massively in the works. We look to you, the alumni, to really kind of look to your networks, look to your communities, your family, your friends, and really dig deep on the nominations which take place. We're launching on the 8th of January for our 2026 programme, and we really look to you, the alumni, to get in touch with myself, Katie, Gillian, Roger, the team, and put up some suitable candidates to be in the mix for the class of 2026, where we have a huge programme of events in place. As you all know, we are very much subscribed, and we've got flights booked. Everyone signed up for the retreat taking place later this year in May. We have our Ireland retreat for those of you who can make May, but also who are interested in coming along at the end of January to Mount Juliet on the 22nd. So the 8th of January launch and nominations open, 22nd Ireland retreat. Lots of activity happening in between that, including the Female Forum on the 12th of February. So huge amount of activity. I won't take any more of your time this morning. Just from myself, on behalf of Roger, Katie, Gillian and Ella and the wider team here in EY, wishing you and your families a very happy Christmas, and thanks for all the support, and look forward to another great year. Thank you.